LeBron James is going to be with the Lakers, I think, for the next 2 years. But again, it's all up to him, as the news of the day is LeBron James. No surprise that he's back with the Lakers. Zero surprise whatsoever. And really not much of a surprise in terms of his contract, except a few other things. And these things, no matter how minute they are, Kerry Rhodes, when it comes to LeBron James, always end up being a bigger thing. And it's a bigger thing considering the news that we had yesterday when the Lakers introduced Bronny James as part of their draft class, of course, drafted in the second round in the draft just a week ago. But the conversation with the Lakers never stops, and maybe we're making a mountain out of a molehill. But let's start with that LeBron James contract. It's a 2-year deal, near a max, $104 million over the 2 years. But the second year is a player option.
Right.
It also includes a no-trade clause, so the Lakers cannot trade LeBron James. Just off the top of your head, do you know how many players in the NBA have a no-trade clause?
I do. I do know that information. It's only 2, and the other is Bradley Beal. Yeah.
So that tells you a little something. Okay, first of all, whoever did Bradley Beal's contract
is the OG.
Yeah,
of
amazing.
Yes.
Like, I mean, that person is the supreme, the numero uno.
He's the Godfather.
But it's also the fact of why, like, is there a reality? Is there a real world where the Lakers would ever trade LeBron James?
No.
And so, like just the fact, but again, it's always getting more.
Yeah.
Like wanting more, where it just never ends with the Lakers. It's the drafting of his son. It's getting his contract. It's hiring of JJ Redick. It's more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I just don't know when it ends for the Lakers. and that's like my takeaway as I look at this is now, and by the way, for the next how many years it's going to be, whether it be the next 3 years or 4 years where Bronny's in LA, are we going to have to deal with every offseason of LeBron James deciding on whether he wants to retire or not? Like I think that is the point that we are at.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just another layer of the Lakers always giving in to LeBron James.
Yeah, we talk about acquiescing to somebody. I mean, this is the ultimate case of that, right? You're going to be held hostage for as long as LeBron wants to hold you hostage. And so to be in that sweepstakes with the LeBron at this point in his career, is it worth it, right? Are they going to win this year coming up or the next 2 years? Probably not. So you're investing in LeBron being the main attraction that's going to always keep the arena filled, but it's the Lakers. The arena's probably going to be filled anyway.
Yeah.
So what do you stand to gain with this? Is it just association with the LeBron James brand, which is bigger than life? It's bigger than anything we've ever seen in that sport, right? I mean, he has so much pull, so much gravitas, and I think it starts and ends with the brand, because the brand of play that he has on the court isn't, with him being the number one option or number 2 option, which we've seen the last couple of years, isn't enough for them to win. So where does it stop? I don't know. But the version that we're getting right now with him and him holding the biggest brand hostage is pretty insane.
You used the word hostage a couple of times.
Yes.
So we're going to play back a little bit of Bronny James from yesterday, because I know that there's some stuff that stood out with that.
Yeah.
I just at one point, if you're Rich Paul and LeBron, do you say, like, maybe we should give him one? Maybe we should give him a break. Maybe keeping them under the second apron and taking $1 million less is their way of it going back and forth.
Sure.
But it sure seems like it's been, a one-sided sort of deal. And the Lakers have been somewhat criticized this offseason for their inability to bring in other players that we thought maybe could have been candidates. Obviously, Klay Thompson, the biggest name.
Yeah.
That didn't work out. He chose to go to the Dallas Mavericks, which I think a lot of feel is an indictment on the Lakers, considering his connections there.
Yeah.
But nothing has necessarily gone right for the Lakers, and that's a constant message over these last couple of days. And the only things that seem to actually be getting done are all LeBron James and Rich Paul connected.
And it's all, we talked about it Sunday, it's all calculated. the leakage that comes out when it comes out is always in LeBron's favor.
Mm-hmm.
Even the contract, right? He's willing to accept under the max if we get this. There's always a caveat, but the caveat is always something that has to do with LeBron or his team. And so we see that. That's number one. So everything about that's always calculated. But then think about any free agent that has joined them or joined LeBron down the stretch of his career. They stand to gain no praise, but they stand to gain all the blame. And so why would any guy that has a chance to go play with LeBron that's had a name or been an all-star or or thought of as a big-time player in this league want to go be subjected to that, especially after seeing Russell Westbrook, right?
You know what's interesting, because I know your time in the NFL, there have been some veterans that have come aboard and maybe had different rules than other people.
Sure.
I think that LeBron's career has gone on for so long that he has now outlasted pretty much most of his peers in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go back a decade ago, and it's crazy to think that a decade ago was 2014 at the end of his Heat run, but it's been 10 years, and even more than that, LeBron James had guys that would be willing to come and play for him.
Yes.
And there were certain players, and they would kind of eschew some of the younger people, some of the younger players that maybe they could bring along, didn't necessarily develop many players, and instead would rather take veterans that were LeBron's peers or even guys that were older than him.
Yeah.
And this is the problem when you go to a 98-year-old's funeral. None of their friends are there.
Yes.
Because they're all gone.
Yes.
And so LeBron now, in terms of wanting to bring people in, there's nobody left in the league that would even want to do what the LeBron old thing would do.
Yeah.
Because they're not connected to LeBron. He's not their age. And the other thing is maybe, just maybe, some of them had heard stories about other people being passed along or pushed to the side or moved on.
Yes.
And so now that doesn't seem appealing to them. And so it's not to be careful what you wish for, but what worked 10 years ago is now turning around and biting you in the butt. And I feel that is part of what's happening with the Lakers and LeBron James, and now he's getting everything that he wants, but that's not the NBA of 10 years ago, and there are people that don't want to play that way.
Yeah, nobody wants to have one guy be the beneficiary of all the things.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about, we can take it and switch sports, right? We can go to Caitlin Clark. We talked about that a lot, but she's been the beneficiary of a lot of the stories surrounding the blossoming sport of the WNBA, right? And so there's just a normal feeling of like, okay, enough's enough. And I think that's kind of what's happening here.
How much pull did Favre have when he came?
A lot.
and that's someone with zero equity into the Jets. And LeBron's got a little with the Lakers, but still, like, even though he's been there a while now, I don't know if it rises to the level of it. But it is, you are catering to your star. Like, are there any parallels with the Jets to what LeBron and the Lakers are doing?
Sure, but I don't think. Yes, there was power surrounding what Brett Favre could do and maybe we couldn't do as a team prior, right? Like, there were some changes. There were some things that he had his own locker room with the coaches, right? He had the same dress code didn't apply to him that applied to us at certain points. But even in that small amount of time, us as players, we recognize that, and we spoke up about that after a certain point. So do the players that come there feel they have the cachet to speak up on some of these things that LeBron is doing? And it's obviously the answer is no when you see that. But for us, we spoke up about that, and that's why that union didn't last long.
So things didn't change, or like they did change?
They changed in that time. Yeah, like everybody now that Brett Favre doesn't have to wear a suit to the road game, so everybody's not wearing suits to the road. Like, just
that way. Not that Favre is actually wearing the suit; it's that the rules relaxed for everybody else.
Exactly.
So he could wear his Wranglers or whatever he was peddling.
Oh, it's Wranglers for sure.
He's Kerry Rhodes. I'm Dan Beyer. Kerry used the word hostage.
Yes.
This was Bronny James talking about, I guess, his future when he was introduced yesterday as the Lakers' second-round pick here in L.A.
For sure, the amplified amount of pressure. I've already seen it, stuff, media and stuff in the internet and stuff, talking about I might not deserve an opportunity, but I've been dealing with stuff like this for my whole life, so it's nothing different, but it's more amplified for sure. But I can get through it.
I don't think I would just like when I get there. I don't think it would be like just be like me and my dad. Like I would I would be happy about getting to the league instead of me thinking about playing with my dad. But that's like not my mindset right now at all. I'm just trying to put in the work and see where it takes me from there.
So there's a little double dose of Bronny James for you.
Yeah.
Riding the company line. Is that what that's what you're hearing?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It feels to me like he's been kept captive in this room for a couple of months, getting prepped on what to say, what not to say. And then they say, show up to this place at this time, and you're going to speak, in a way that's not going to draw attention to anything other than, what you're going to put on the court. And it seemed like there was no emotion. There was no sense of him being himself. And so it seems like it's very much calculated, which is everything that represents LeBron. And so there's no separation there.
There's no way to get to know him. And that's the thing of usually with rookies, whether it be in your sport, the NFL, or in the NBA, I even felt bad for Dalton Knecht. And I said this yesterday, that Dalton Knecht is a guy whose story is magnificent, of a guy who started out in a junior college, then went to D2 and transferred to the SEC, was player of the year, and then gets drafted by the Lakers. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That doesn't even give a second thought. And I also thought that Bronny's wording, and I don't want to sit here and criticize Bronny because I don't think it's Bronny's choice in all of this, but there were a bunch of different ways to go, and what it is it sounds like it's a presidential debate, or at least Bronny is coherent, but he's saying the things that are sticking to the topic and sticking to the script.
It's like prepped.
Yes. That this is the point, and if they talk about this, go back to this sort of thing. Yeah.
And that's what it feels like. I mean, it legitimately feels like if the way that it's going right now and the way that he's approaching this, and I'm sure he has to handle it a little bit delicately, but we're not going to know who he is. And this is a chance for him to actually, as he's becoming a man, to distance himself from that brand and be his own person. And so I just don't know if playing with his dad, he's going to have that opportunity.
Well, there's going to be a time where his dad's not in the league.
Yep.
And he's always going to have his name. And honestly, we don't know if Bronny will be in the league when his dad is out of the league.
That's right.
And so like to the point of and maybe that goes back to the point of the original contract. I am not surprised in the least that LeBron is going for a year-to-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
The cynic in me is like, of course, LeBron wants to make it about himself as this goes on. But there's also a part of me to that point that thinks like, well, as long as I'm here, they're not going to get rid of Bronny.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take care of Bronny in that way, and this is how we're going to go because this isn't your team, this is my team, and this is how I want things to run. Right. And that is crazy to think of one of the most storied franchises in the NBA, that he has taken over that franchise and maybe now is holding them hostage. Not only now with his contract, but Bronny's contract and what ends up happening to Bronny. And at some point, Bronny's got to grow himself.
Yes.
And it would probably behoove him that his dad wasn't still in the NBA.
Yeah, but what you just said is very much a real thing. If his dad's not in the NBA, will he be in the NBA after that time? So he has, in theory, 2 years or a year here to really show what he can do. And again, we talk about Bron having that he can opt out in that second year. Maybe LeBron ends up going to another team and he comes there as well. But like it's always that kind of, at this moment, it almost seems like a package deal.